I think the story starts and it ends with Jayden Daniels. And we came on to the broadcast, Dave, and we were saying, is it possible in the midst of what's likely to be an offensive rookie of the year season, is it possible that people aren't giving him enough credit for the season he's having? I think any of those concerns are out the window. To beat a red-hot 10 wins in a row Philadelphia team, that number one defense, to put those drives together, that second half is it's pretty remarkable.
Second and goal, 10 seconds. Daniels fires, end zone, touchdown! Jamison Crowder, preposterous! 5 turnovers and the lead with seconds remaining.
Welcome to the NFL on Fox podcast, presented by Verizon, the NFL powered by Verizon 5G. I am your host, Dave Helman. Hope wherever you are watching, wherever you're listening, you are having a safe, a happy, a healthy holiday week, settled in for a week of festivities, not to mention more football to come. I'm getting ahead of myself because I also hope you enjoyed a phenomenal Week 16. Goodness gracious, we had fantastic football on Saturday. We had a Sunday night shocker. We had movement in the playoff standings. And maybe you heard at the top of the show, we had a classic in the district on Sunday. The Washington Commanders kicked us off in style with a 36-33 win against the Philadelphia Eagles. They snapped the Eagles' best ever winning streak. Jayden Daniels, his legend continues to grow. So much to get into. We're going to talk with Ralph Vacchiano later, deep dive on this and plenty more. But first, let's take it to Washington. Had a chance to catch up with Joe Davis and Greg Olsen, who were on the call for one of the best games of the season. That is our lead item on the Sunday 6th, the 6 big storylines we think you need to know. And yeah, it starts there with the Washington Commanders. Let's get into it. Well, guys, so many layers to this game, but after that conclusion, I mean, where do you start? Anywhere but with Jayden Daniels. I mean, we knew the guy was good, but to play this well and to dig out of these deficits, I mean, what did you see from this guy?
Yeah, they had every reason to lose this game, but they find a way to win behind 5 touchdowns from him.
Yeah, I think the story starts and it ends with Jayden Daniels. And we came on to the broadcast, Dave, and we were saying, is it possible in the midst of what's likely to be an offensive rookie of the year season, is it possible that people aren't giving him enough credit for the season he's having? I think any of those concerns are out the window. To beat a red-hot 10 wins in a row Philadelphia team, that number one defense, to put those drives together, that second half is it's pretty remarkable.
It was kind of striking the way that they were able to beat Philly's secondary. I mean, that's been such an underrated part of the Eagles' surge here in the season. What was Jayden seeing? What were they doing to get the Eagles off track that they were able to have such a staggering amount of success throwing the ball?
Yeah, that's the thing that makes it easy to forget when you see him get all those touchdowns. But this is the number one defense in the league.
Yeah, and I think he did it really against a lot of the things that make Philly so hard, right? That pass rush. He only took 1 sack. And I can't stress it enough. Last week, taking 8, they kind of had a sit-down moment and said, hey, we understand you're a great athlete, your legs are a weapon, but we can't take 8 sacks in a game. It's just too many negative plays. So with all that pressure he was under, 1 sack, obviously the 2 fourth-down scramble runs on his own to convert for scoring drives, and then that 1 drive backed up on their own side of the field, 2 deep, long conversions, 2 explosive plays that ended in a touchdown, and it's all the things he needed to do well today for them to win.
Y'all go to Washington and another wild one happens. This was a ton of fun and another signature moment for Jayden Daniels and the Commanders. Guys, I appreciate it.
All right. Appreciate it.
A game that good deserves a little bit more analysis. And joining me now to provide it, our guy, Ralph Vacchiano of FoxSports.com. Ralph, I'm going to start here because I feel like I can hear Eagles fans demanding that I point this out. Jalen Hurts did go down on the second possession of this game. 10 minutes to play in the first quarter. undoubtedly changes the complexion of this, even if I thought Kenny Pickett played fairly well for the most part, but how much does that injury affect things moving forward? I guess we're going to have to wait and see what the prognosis is on Jalen moving forward, but how much do you think the Eagles offense changes without him in this game? And hopefully not, but maybe even if he has to miss a little bit more time.
Well, I think it changes a lot. They seem to kind of run the same game plan with Kenny Pickett in there, which led to the quarterback having to make some decisions, and Pickett wasn't always making the right ones that Jalen Hurts was earlier in the year. Kenny Pickett is not the same threat outside of the pocket that Jalen Hurts is, so that took something away. I think you saw in the second half that without Jalen Hurts there and his ability to really throw, the Commanders were loading up the line of scrimmage on Saquon Barkley and really shut him down in the second half. He was facing fronts that he didn't really see since his Giants days, when he was the only guy that anybody had to care about on those Giants teams. So it changed a lot. And I think there were 11 drives that Kenny Pickett had, and they basically did nothing. They punted 4 times. They kicked a bunch of field goals. The only touchdown drive, he finished off one touchdown drive for Jalen Hurts. The only touchdown drive he had was the one with a Saquon Barkley 68-yard run. So Kenny Pickett he wasn't terrible by any stretch, but he didn't generate a lot of sustained offense. And when you do that and you can't get those sustained drives, which the Eagles are so good at, you let the other team stay in the game. And that's what happened here. They let the Commanders hang around because they couldn't keep them off the field long enough. And as we saw, the Commanders were able to take advantage.
I think it's a valid point. And if you're an Eagles fan frustrated by having to watch this, I get it. You didn't have your star quarterback for the vast majority of the game. Having said that, though, the Eagles defense still generated 5 takeaways. And even if it wasn't as explosive as what we're used to, Kenny Pickett did guide Philly to points on 4 second half possessions. Granted, it was a lot of field goals, but Washington still had to dig out of a 14-point hole and later on a 13-point hole. The fact that Jalen Hurts didn't play most of this game really does nothing to diminish how impressed I was by Jayden Daniels in this game. Like the poise, the playmaking ability, what he did with his feet, the way that he rebounded from the late interception. Eagles fans can take issue with it all they want, but I thought this was one of the most impressive performances of the entire NFL season, regardless of who Philly had in at quarterback.
Yeah, and Jalen Hurts being out set the table, but what Jayden Daniels did completely took advantage of what he was given. It was somewhere in the third quarter, I was watching the game thinking that, this was not the most impressive game I've ever seen Jayden Daniels play. He had a couple of interceptions. The offense was lethargic. And then all of a sudden, he did what he can do, which is basically explode in 3 fourth quarter touchdown passes, a wild comeback at the end, a great final drive for that last touchdown pass with 6 seconds to go. He's just one of the most exciting young players to come into this league in a very long time. And, they did have the 5 turnovers. He did have 2 interceptions. He's not perfect, but if you give him a little bit of room, he is capable of big things like that. And we have seen it over and over again this season. He may not be the guy that's going to consistently carry a team week in and week out. The Commanders really could have used a little bit more of a running game than just him to sustain that. Maybe their defense could have been a little better at the beginning, but Jayden Daniels is capable of some magic moments like that. And it makes you wonder, if he's going to be capable of some of that in the postseason too, because this is not a pushover defense. This is one of the best defenses in the league. And he just shredded them late in the game.
Here's the stat of the day from our wonderful research team. Entering today, teams that allowed 30 points or more and committed 5 turnovers were 1 and 158 in the last 21 seasons. Last time a team managed to win a game in these circumstances, it was the 2010 Giants against the Dallas Cowboys. Eli Manning was in his hay at the time. This doesn't happen often. So again, yeah, it matters that Jalen Hurts didn't play a lot in this game, but not that much, in my opinion. Not when we're able to see Jayden Daniels really put the team on his back down the stretch like this. And I would be remiss if I didn't get real big picture with you, Ralph, because I think when we previewed this game, we were kind of on the same page about Washington not really having a resume win, a central win. They get it here, obviously, and now having seen Jayden do this, I knew he was good, but having seen him do this against a defense like this, I have an entirely different idea of what Washington might be capable of in the playoffs.
Yeah, I do too. I thought they were honestly going to be a team that was going to be one and out, and they would get in, they'd go on the road, they'd have a tough opponent, they'd show well, but they just didn't have what it takes to win. They came of age a little bit in this game. It's going to be really interesting to see what it does for them the final 2 weeks of the season. I hope they finish strong, that they don't just have suddenly a letdown after this game, but they showed, the signs we've seen all season long, the toughness, the ability to come back, the ability to stay in games, the elite quarterback who can carry his team when necessary. And all of that came together against a team that honestly I thought was starting to look like the best team in the NFL. So if they can do that to the Philadelphia Eagles, probably 9 times out of 10, they're not going to beat them, especially if they're committing all those turnovers. There's certainly some things to worry about for the Commanders, but they are capable of going into Detroit, Philadelphia, Minnesota, wherever they have to go, and surprising a lot of people. I think they'll be in any playoff game they're in, and I wouldn't count them out.
In the big picture, if we can assume Jalen Hurts will be healthy sooner rather than later, I don't think this changes a lot for the Eagles. They were always up against it to overcome Detroit for the number 1 seed. I think Next Gen Stats said on Sunday afternoon that their chances of earning the bye week are as low as 4% after this game. So you're probably going to be playing on Wild Card weekend, but I always thought that was possible. It is crazy though to think back, Ralph. The margin of error in this league is wild, because people are going to talk about Devontae Smith has a big drop with a chance to put this game away, and all the way back in September, Saquon Barkley had a chance to put the Atlanta Falcons away. The Philadelphia Eagles could be right there with the Chiefs in terms of having just one loss at Christmas, if not for just the tiniest miscues. But at the end of the day, I don't think it changes my opinion of what they're capable of.
I mean, look, when you're talking about elite teams like this, it does come down to those tiny things. The Chiefs have had a few tiny breaks along the way where they could have easily lost 2 or 3 more games, but they've gotten the breaks where the Eagles haven't necessarily gotten them. I would still put the Eagles up there with the Chiefs, with the Bills, with the Lions. Is probably the best 4 teams in the league. The Minnesota Vikings, they want me to believe. They keep trying to make me believe. I'm not quite there yet. But I don't think this changes anything for me about the Eagles either. It changes more for me, as we just said, about the Commanders. And by the way, when you put up that graphic of the playoffs, the playoff seedings right now, the Eagles will play the Washington Commanders in the first round of the playoffs if the seedings hold. So we could be looking at this game all over again, and we would now have a completely new perspective on that if that matchup happens.
That's what I want for Christmas. I hadn't thought that far ahead, but I would like to see a reprise of this game with a healthy Jalen Hurts. It was a heck of a lot of fun. Philly can still wrap up the NFC East if they beat Dallas. That's the thing. They've got the Cowboys and then the Giants to wrap this season up. So a very nice cushion for them to land on in the last 2 weeks of the season. It's all there for them. But, ooh, yeah, Ralph, I mean, an Eagles-Commanders rematch to settle the season series sounds very fun to me. All right, that does it for Eagles Commanders, but Ralph is actually our marathon man here on the Fox Sports staff this weekend. He's going to help us dive into the number 2 topic on our Sunday 6, because he was actually at Saturday's game. Baltimore Ravens get a big win over the Pittsburgh Steelers with Tom Brady on the call on Saturday afternoon. And Ralph, my big takeaway from this, I'd be curious from your perspective. You were in the building. We all know what Lamar Jackson brings to the table at this point, but a pick 6 from Marlon Humphrey and Justin Tucker actually hits his field goals in this game. It's amazing how much better the Ravens look when the other 2 components of their team are hitting as opposed to just their offense.
Right, exactly. We've known all year long Lamar Jackson, Derrick Henry are going to be tough to stop, but the questions were, what about the other pieces for this team? And to see that come together, when it does come together, they are dominant. They were my preseason Super Bowl pick, and they were my preseason Super Bowl pick for a reason. They can be that good. They have been somewhat erratic. I know they started off 0-2 this season. They've had some bumps along the way, but all the pieces are there. It's a pretty good defense that hasn't always played up to the level that it should be at. We know what Justin Tucker can do, and It's obviously not been a great year for him, but all the pieces are there. And if they can get it together down the stretch, they could definitely be a force in the playoffs. The Steelers team, I guess you could say they're kind of reeling. They've lost to the Eagles and the Ravens in back-to-back weeks. Again, two of the tougher teams. So I don't know how much you want to hold that against them, but the Steeler team has been pretty good all year long. They're a tough defense as well. They've been gutty on offense, and the Ravens. It was close for a while, but the Ravens pulled away, and they did to the Steelers what the Eagles did, a couple of weeks ago. Basically, just ground them down and bullied them towards the end of the game. So yeah, when everything's clicking for the Ravens, they're as good as anybody.
This is probably my most unfair opinion, and I feel bad about it because before the season, I thought the Steelers were a distant third, possibly even fourth in the AFC North, depending on how you felt about Cleveland. They race out to the lead. They're in control for so long. They've already clinched a playoff spot. I mean, this season, compared to the preseason expectations, I don't know how you classify it as anything but a success in Pittsburgh. But if you lose to the Chiefs and give the Ravens control of the AFC North, it feels like a disappointment to me. And like I said, I don't think that's fair, but with all that was on the table for them, if they hand control of the division over to Baltimore with 1 week to go, I don't think anybody in Pittsburgh is going to be patting each other on the back about having a nice season.
No, it's going to feel like a waste, and it's probably not fair. I agree with you. I would have thought they were going to finish third in their division. I did not have a lot of faith in Russell Wilson. And if you told me how the season was going to play out for them, I looked at them yesterday or Saturday, and, with George Pickens out of the lineup, they don't have a ton of weapons on offense, yet they're still managing to generate some offense. They still can run the ball. They still have an array of no-name receivers that Russell Wilson can spread the ball to. So there's a lot of good things that they've been doing, in a close loss to the Chiefs. We're going to hold it against them that they lost 3 straight games to the Eagles, Ravens, and Chiefs. But again, we're talking about 3 of the best teams in the entire NFL, but it will feel like a big waste because they had a chance to be maybe the number 2 seed in the entire AFC. They had a chance to be the surprise team of the entire league, get a home game in Pittsburgh, and they're about to blow it all. And you can't just blame it on the schedule. They've been in all of these games. Their defense couldn't stop the Eagles and Ravens at key moments of the game. They made big mistakes. The Russell Wilson pick 6, things that, weren't necessarily about the opponent as much as it was about what they are capable of doing. And, maybe they overachieved most of the season. Maybe that's the story, but everybody was starting to buy in. So yeah, in Pittsburgh, it's going to feel like, something's gone really, really badly wrong. No one's going to look at the competition. It's just going to say, oh my gosh, what happened to the Steelers?
You had an up-close view of the Steelers in this game, and Calvin Austin has had a surprising month. I think he's emerged as maybe a better option than a lot of people gave him credit for, but you hit it on the head. I mean, they don't have a consistent enough downfield passing attack without George Pickens. There is some optimism that he can be available for this Christmas game against the Chiefs. Is that enough, do you think? I mean, is that as what the Steelers have been missing? If they get him back in the lineup, do they have enough explosive element to their offense to maybe right the ship?
I think it's enough to help them. It's still not really an explosive offense. I think their game is going to be on the ground, and not that Russell Wilson's really being a game manager, but he's not going to be, throwing for 400 yards most games, I don't think. I think it's kind of a more methodical passing attack. Honestly, what worries me about them after watching them is really more about their defense. They did not come up with the big stops when they needed to. And we saw it against the Eagles a week earlier. The Eagles finished that game on a 10.5-minute drive. If you're an elite defense and a playoff defense, you can't be giving up a 10.5-minute drive to end the game. I think the Ravens had an 8 or so minute drive in the fourth quarter as well. At some point, you've got to stop them and get them off the field. And they couldn't do it. I really thought the defense was what was going to carry the Steelers, and they made me think twice about that. So the defense worries me, and especially because you don't have an offense that's, it's not I don't even know what would be it's not the Detroit Lions offense. It's not, what we used to think of the Kansas City Chiefs offense with weapons all over the place. It's just a methodical offense that's not going to be enough to carry a team if the defense doesn't step up.
We talked about this on the preview show last week, but, Baltimore and Pittsburgh both are part of this little mini AFC tournament. They both play on Christmas. So now the Ravens get Houston and the Steelers get Kansas City. It's going to be interesting to see where things stand when those games are over, because the Ravens are surging at the right time for all of their miscues, for all of their missed opportunities. I'm not going to be surprised if they have the inside track for the division title by the end of Christmas. So we'll see how it goes. Ralph, super busy weekend, man. I hope you have a restful holiday. Have a Merry Christmas. I appreciate you taking the time.
Thank you. Happy holidays to you too.
Don't worry. No, we did not forget to highlight Lamar Jackson in that segment. Just wanted to give him his own moment, because I am feeling very smart as we draw toward the end of week 16, because it was just last week I said, hey, let's not hand the MVP award out too soon, because Lamar Jackson's balling. And sure enough, on the day that Josh Allen slows down just a little bit, Bills did beat the Patriots 24-21, but not as crazy of a day from Josh as what we've gotten used to. Lamar on Saturday, 207 passing yards, 3 touchdowns, another 22 rushing yards. Phenomenal performance from him to get up to 40 touchdowns on the season. I'm not handing out any hardware just yet, at least not MVP. Can I interest you in Tom Brady's LFG player of the game, though? Because Lamar Jackson did, in fact, win that with his big day on Saturday.
Congratulations, Lamar. You're today's LFG player of the game. Another great performance by you and the team. Tell me, in some respects, it's been a little bit of a frustrating year. You guys have 5 losses, but did we finally see today what the potential of this team is?
Absolutely, and I still feel like there's room for improvement with us. That turnover after that drive down the field, but our defense stepped up for us and came through. But the season is just getting started, like I said last week. Still room for improvement, though.
Yeah. How have you guys continued to adapt over the course of the season to kind of the different circumstances you guys have faced?
Just competing with each other at practice. Just like treating it like a game. But just trying to keep our body fresh and everyone staying dialed in, starting with walkthrough. Meetings, stuff like that, and it's transitioning over to the game, to the play field, and we're doing a pretty good job at that.
Yeah. Does beating the Steelers today make Christmas any sweeter for you?
It would, but I have a game on Christmas, so I got to stay locked in with this game. Probably after the victory, after the game Wednesday, I'll have an answer for you.
Yeah, you'll get a chance to celebrate then. It's been awesome watching you play this year. This is I thought I've seen it all with 2 MVPs already. You've already won, certainly being in the hunt again. Congratulations to you, your team. And hopefully we see you down the road, my man.
Appreciate you, Goat. I appreciate you always.
Great seeing you. Congrats.
Yes, sir. Thank you.
Merry Christmas, Lamar.
Happy holidays and Merry Christmas to y'all.
Every game that I broadcast, I award the LFG player of the game to that one player who makes me say, let's go.
For the third item on our Sunday 6, let's just stick with the AFC contenders, because the Ravens were big winners this weekend, but they certainly were not alone. Let's start with the other Saturday game. Chiefs top the Houston Texans 27-19 at Arrowhead Stadium. And of course, after so much hand-wringing about Patrick Mahomes' ankle, myself included, mea culpa, I'll take some blame in this. I was certainly concerned about Patrick Mahomes playing again on short rest after hurting his ankle against Cleveland. And of course, he goes out, he plays, he gets the start. He's a full participant by the end of the week. It's like nothing ever happened. And he leads the Chiefs to their league best 14th win of the season. Who can say they're surprised? Almost as if it was commentary on people like me. Like, I felt like Patrick Mahomes was side-eyeing me from the field as he scrambles for a 12-yard touchdown on his first possession of the day. So it's not just that he plays. It's not just that he looks healthy. He's actually running around on that bum ankle, scoring touchdowns, finished with 33 rushing yards. I think he's going to be okay. And otherwise, just another impressive day of efficiency. I don't think the explosiveness with Kansas City isn't going to impress anybody, although Xavier Worthy continues to grow in his role in this offense. There have been some missed opportunities between Worthy and Patrick Mahomes this year, but 7 catches for 65 yards and a touchdown, 3 carries for 10 yards as well. Xavier Worthy growing. You get Hollywood Brown back in this game, 5 for 45 in his first game of the year. Not a bad place to be. if you're the Chiefs. And like I said, the efficiency. Kansas City had drives of 11 plays, 13 plays, 10 plays, 14 plays, and then they capped it off with a 7-play clock killer at the end of the game. They had the ball for 10 minutes of the fourth quarter, just bled the clock out, did not let Houston have the football. And they get to 27. They get to 14-1, 27-19 is the final score. And it looked for all the world like they might have locked up the number 1 seed, because late in the late window on Sunday, Buffalo falls behind 14-0 to the New England Patriots. And you're sitting there thinking, wow, the Chiefs might lock this thing up without having to play another football game. Who cares about this Christmas game against the Pittsburgh Steelers? The Bills, they do rally, but they need to recover an onside kick from the New England Patriots to win 24-21. They do just enough. And now we have a very clear picture of the stakes in the AFC. The Chiefs, even with Buffalo owning that tiebreaker, obviously they got a 2-game lead on Buffalo. A win in Pittsburgh on Christmas locks up the number 1 seed, while the Steelers need a win against the Chiefs to make sure they stay on top in the AFC North for another week. As if you needed a reason to tune in on Christmas. You're going to be home anyway. Gather the family around the TV. Huge stakes in Pittsburgh. Can't wait to watch that one. And while the Chiefs might have locked up their division weeks ago, it's looking increasingly likely that they will not be alone in repping the AFC West in the playoffs this year. Not official, not mathematically official, but the LA Chargers put one foot firmly in the postseason when they roared back on Thursday night. They beat the Denver Broncos 34-27. I thought Justin Herbert played a great game and one of the better big spot games of his entire career. Huge game, national audience, very clearly defined postseason stakes. And Justin Herbert, I thought, was the difference. He helped LA outscore the Broncos 21-6 in the second half of this game. 284 yards, 2 touchdowns, just how you drew it up. The guy that, you know, we have these insane arguments about Justin Herbert, whether he's actually as good as people say he is, whether the numbers and the stats are all empty. Well, this certainly looked like the guy that got paid all of that money, that was drafted as highly as he was, that set all the statistical milestones. Sure, Jim Harbaugh factored his presence on the roster very heavily into becoming the Chargers head coach. They look very likely to make the postseason. And if it wasn't a big enough win for the Nerds to have Justin Herbert deliver on his talent and on his potential in this game, it's a huge night for the Nerds because of something that happened in the first half. Not very often you go out of your way to mention a field goal from 4 days ago. But how could you not when Cameron Dicker nailed a fair catch free kick, a bygone rule from when football used to resemble rugby? The Broncos committed fair catch interference on the last play of the first half. And as a lot of people found out on Thursday night, that enables you to attempt an uncontested field goal from wherever you are on the field. The fair catch interference penalty moved Dicker into field goal range. 57 yards is a long kick, but indoors with nobody allowed to try to block it, he absolutely drilled this thing. I've never seen so many nerdy people get so excited on the internet as I did for this play. It's the first time this rule has come into effect since 2019. So we haven't even seen it arise in 5 years. And even better than that, Dicker hit the kick, which helped spark the Chargers rally. It's the first time someone has converted a fair catch free kick since 1976. Naturally, we had to talk about this, and we had to hear what Cameron Dicker thought about it as well.
I think Joey Sly might have been the last one to have done it, and so we watched that on film in those Fridays, and so we always talked through it, and so it was cool to be able to go out there. I didn't really think it'd ever happen. I was always just kind of like, that'd be cool if it did, because usually they're longer kicks, and long kicks are fun, so I was hoping it would happen, so it's a really cool opportunity for us.
The Chargers are now sitting on a 97% chance to reach the postseason. They can clinch a wild card spot officially if they beat New England on Saturday. Early window, 1 p.m., 10 a.m., depending on where you are. Point being, First of 3 games on Saturday, the Chargers have a chance to clinch a wild card spot in Foxborough. That's a big one. And speaking of big ones on Saturday, not rooting against the Denver Broncos by any stretch, but you can't deny that Denver losing to LA sets up a riveting Saturday game, because now the Broncos travel to face Joe Burrow and the Cincinnati Bengals. Broncos need just one win. Just one win clinches a wild card for them. But the Bengals are one of just a couple teams left in the AFC, one of 3 teams left in the AFC that is mathematically still alive. They beat the Cleveland Browns on Sunday, and they are clinging to an 8% chance to make the postseason. Cincinnati needs to both win out. They got to beat Denver and Pittsburgh, and they need to hope the Broncos lose out. So 50% of that is in their control. They play Denver on Saturday. And if the Bengals beat Denver, they are currently 3-point favorites, by the way. So despite the records, plenty of opportunity. Obviously, Joe Burrow, another amazing week against the Browns, played phenomenally in that win. Sets the stage for all of the drama. Because if Cincinnati manages to win, Denver then gets Kansas City in week 18. We don't know for sure what the Chiefs will have to play for, if anything, but division games, regardless, always seems to come down to the wire like this. Again, not necessarily rooting against the Broncos, but you cannot deny that the schedule makers were in their bag when they drew this one up. I am excited for Saturday. That's what you call a teaser in the AFC. Item number 4 on our Sunday 6 is the fact that the phrase stumble bum is now part of our collective football lexicon. If you're not familiar, bear with me. Let's rewind. Pardon the pun, because yes, we're talking Lions, Bears here. Detroit makes pretty easy work of the Chicago Bears in a 34-17 win, but the part we're going to remember for a long time came on the first possession of the third quarter when Jared Goff seemed to trip and lose hold of the football. A trip that was sold even more beautifully by Jahmyr Gibbs, who dove for a non-existent fumble. That deception freezes half of the Chicago Bears defense, who stutter step. You hear a bunch of people at the line of scrimmage yelling, fumble, fumble, fumble. Meanwhile, Lions tight end Sam Laporta leaks behind the defense, and he's in the end zone for about as easy a pitch and catch touchdown as you could expect to have. All this debate, everybody talking on social media. Was that on purpose? Did Jared Goff mean to trip? Did Jahmyr Gibbs mean to dive for the fumble? Well, let's hear it from Jahmyr Gibbs himself.
I think they played the Packers a couple weeks ago, and Jordan Love, he fumbled the snap actually, and I don't think they meant to do that. But the same thing happened. I think who's their tight end? Kraft, yeah. He ran the same thing Sam ran. It was the exact same thing, but we just made him like a real play, actually stumbling and stuff.
So not only was Stumble Bum very intentional and very much drawn up by Lions offensive coordinator Ben Johnson, it was inspired by something that happened in a Bears loss to Green Bay in week 1 of 2023. Shout out to Kalen Kaler of ESPN for pointing that out. Ben Johnson noticed a Bears reaction to a fumbled snap in the season opener of last year and incorporated into his game plan. Just in case you were wondering how much tape these guys watch, how diabolical they are when they're sitting in their dark offices drawing up game plans. Kudos, Ben Johnson. He said the well is deep. It looks deeper by the week. You could call it the ultimate troll job. I mean, what's funnier than using a Green Bay play to score a hilarious trick play touchdown against the Chicago Bears? Amazing trolling. Top tier. You could also point out Ben Johnson about to approach his 3rd NFL head coach hiring cycle, and the Lions are the hottest team, hottest offense in the NFL. Sunday was the 6th time this year they've gained 400 yards of offense. It's the 8th time this year they've scored 30 or more points. Maybe Ben Johnson was simply showing his stuff to the Bears executives who are about to hire a new head coach. Not that you need to see that to be sold on Ben Johnson. He's going to be the hottest commodity in the coaching carousel this offseason, but just one more thing maybe to inspire the Bears front office to say, we got to get this Ben Johnson guy into Chicago. We want him working with Caleb Johnson. The Lions get back on track. Easy win against a division rival after that heartbreaking loss to Buffalo last week. Plus, the win came with some extra good news because while this was happening, obviously, Philadelphia loses in Washington, which gives the Lions a much clearer path to the number 1 overall seed. Not as clear as it could be, though. Much like the Chiefs, the Lions had to watch as their closest competition for the 1 seed eked out a close win. It used to be Philadelphia, true enough, but it's funny how quickly things change in the NFL because as soon as the Eagles lost, the Minnesota Vikings became Detroit's closest competition for the 1 seed, and the Minnesota Vikings, against all odds, continued to keep pace with their division rivals by winning late in Seattle. It looked dramatic in the fourth quarter. It almost always does with these guys. Actually, the Lions had back-to-back comfortable wins these last 2 weeks, so they were due for another heart-pounding game, and they got it against Seattle. It looked iffy. Geno Smith put the Seahawks up with less than 5 minutes to play, but once again, Sam Darnold comes through in the clutch. He hits Justin Jefferson late for a go-ahead touchdown, and the Vikings defense shut the door on Geno with a late interception. Just another wild game for Mark Sanchez and Adam Amin, who I caught up with afterwards. Well, guys, halfway through the fourth quarter, it really looked like Geno Smith had Brian Flores figured out. How did the Vikings rebound to shut down the Seahawks there on their last 2 possessions?
Well, I think the Vikings, their defense, it's like Novocaine. Give it time. It eventually is going to work. They're eventually going to get home to the quarterback, which is why early in the game you got to be able to run the football, limit your drop back so you give them less opportunities. But they stuck with it. They stuck with the edge pressure. They stuck with the pick games inside. And Van Ginkel, Grenard, all those guys, Metellus, they end up getting a free runner, and that's where they cause problems for opposing offenses.
Yeah, Dave, there's a little bit of an analytics focus sometimes with Minnesota's defense. Only 23 rush attempts per game against them. That's the lowest total in the league. And a lot of it is because teams are scared to run against those pressures on first and second down. If you can counteract that, it puts you in better position. You saw what Mark was just talking about. As the game went on, the pressure got to Geno Smith eventually.
And then stop me if you've heard this before, but Sam Darnold makes the plays that he needs to in the clutch. I mean, we're not surprised. We are not surprised at this point in the season, but he's on a gimpy leg by the end of this game. Just continues to impress in these clutch moments for the Vikings.
You talk to anybody that is facing Minnesota on any given week, like we did the other night with Seattle, and they have nothing but praise for how Sam Darnold has played. So I agree with you. Leonard Williams, his old college teammate, even said so. His old Jets teammate. This doesn't shock me that he's playing as well as he is, but to do it against pressure situations, to do it with different looks all season long, to do it, granted, when you have to make these types of plays, something that Sam has struggled to get to on a consistent basis. He's doing it this year.
Well, now he has the national stage, and this guy on the road, in the rain, tough NFC opponent, playoff life on the line. I mean, everything what you want for a quarterback, those situations you draw up as a kid and dream about, he's finally getting those, and he's getting them with great calls, great coordinators around him, and great players, and then he makes the spectacular plays. Seattle had Jefferson covered, and Sam Darnold somehow extends this play on a bad leg in the rain and fits that football in. That's incredible stuff. That's going to be something that gives him more and more confidence as he makes his way into the playoffs.
It felt for all the world like the Vikings were finally going to let one slip, and Detroit already won. That was kind of weighing on your mind at the end of this game, and at the end of it, the Vikings pull off another one. Such a fun team to watch, you guys. I appreciate it. I'll talk to you soon.
Absolutely, man. Thanks, Dave.
Man.
Kevin O'Connell becomes the first Vikings head coach in history with multiple 13-win seasons, which is a remarkable accomplishment anywhere for any period of time. Even more remarkable when you realize it's only Kevin O'Connell's 3rd season on the job. They are 25-10 under KOC in one-score games. You might have seen on the broadcast 31 wins in one-score games going back to 2021. Most in the NFL, an impressive accomplishment. I think it's worth having the added context, 25 of those 31 have come under Kevin O'Connell. You can say it's not sustainable, but you went in 25 out of 35. That's a pretty good mark for such tight circumstances. It's incredibly impressive the way the Vikings continue to pull these games off. And I don't think it looks lucky. Like, you say it's not sustainable to keep winning games this way, but they just keep finding ways to do it, and they look calm, cool, and collected while they get these skin of their teeth wins. Incredibly impressive what the Vikings are doing. Incredible that the runner-up in the NFC North will have 13 wins. And now the stakes are very clear. If the Vikings lose to Green Bay on Sunday, the Detroit Lions can wrap up not just the NFC North, but the NFC's number 1 seed with a win against San Francisco next Monday night. If the Vikings beat the Packers next week, it'll set up, regardless of what happens in San Francisco, it'll set up a winner-take-all game, Week 18 in Detroit, Vikings at Lions, division on the line, number 1 seed on the line. If Minnesota beats Green Bay, that's what we are looking at in Week 18. Tell me that is not a tantalizing proposition. The fifth item on our Sunday 6 is Victory Unlocked. It's brought to you by Zillow, agents, tours, loans, homes. And faced with a home game against the New York Giants, the Atlanta Falcons unlocked victory by switching to their rookie quarterback. Yes, all eyes on Atlanta. On paper, not the most scintillating matchup of Week 16, but when Michael Penix Jr. gets a chance to make his first NFL start, we're all eyes. I'm glued to the TV, and Michael Penix Jr. delivered the goods. The Falcons raced past the Giants to a 34-7 win. And let's be clear, it wasn't anything record-setting. Falcons offense scored 20 points, 2 pick sixes by Jesse Bates and Matthew Judon really put this thing away. But you've seen how close the Falcons are to winning football over the last month if their quarterback could just get out of the way. Kirk Cousins could not stop turning the ball over. Falcons offense was mired in mediocrity for most of the last 6 weeks. Turns out they just needed a guy who can take care of the football, convert the odd third down or two. Thought Penix was wonderful. 200 passing yards. Falcons converted 57% of their third downs against the Giants. And if you're box score watching, you see that interception in the ledger. Don't even come at me with that. If you watch the game, you know it was a weird bobble at the goal line by Kyle Pitts. If anything, should have been a touchdown. Certainly not Michael Penix Jr.'s fault. I thought he played, for a guy making his first start, a flawless game to keep the Falcons alive in the NFC playoff chase. Had a chance to catch up with Kevin Kugler and Moose Johnston, who were on the call for a big Falcons win. Well, guys, look, I recognize that Atlanta's defense gave him a couple of big assists, but still, such an impressive performance for Michael Penix Jr. in his debut. What did you see that stood out to you in his first NFL action?
Well, Daryl, what I saw was command. That's what he wanted to have. When we talked with him before the game, command of the offense, and I don't know about you, but I saw that today.
In a lot of different ways. I think the biggest thing for him, the mechanics coming in, getting the play call, getting to the line of scrimmage. We watched the Giants continue to struggle with pre-snap penalties. That was not an issue at all with the Atlanta Falcons, and I think a lot of that is because of Michael Penix Jr. His arm talent that everybody talks about as being unique was on display today, and there was a maturity to him. Just being able to look people off, go through your progressions. I thought he was extremely poised in the pocket. Everything that the Falcons organization saw from him during the draft process that made them choose him at 8, even though they had signed Kirk Cousins in free agency, was validated this afternoon.
With everything the Falcons have been through at the quarterback position that led them to make this switch, what do you think it does for the confidence of this team with the playoffs still on the line to just get a clean, efficient performance from their quarterback?
I think it's a huge thing, especially when you couple it with the way the defense has played and the way special teams has been over the last few weeks. Pressure starting to ramp up from the defense. To get that clean game's big.
Yeah, I mean, you've got a really good benchmark of it, right? Because you played the Raiders on Monday night with Kirk Cousins, and you had a great defensive performance and a great special teams performance. You make the quarterback switch, and it's 34-7 today against the Giants, who are very similar when you're talking about a struggling and a tough season for that team. So I think that there's your difference. The strength of the quarterback play today, as opposed to the uncertainty of the quarterback play Monday night against the Raiders, is kind of the big differentiator.
Falcons looking like they're going to put some pressure on the Buccaneers after this switch to Michael Penix. Guys, I appreciate it. Have a happy holiday.
Happy holidays.
Happy holidays. Merry Christmas.
It's so fun to see some life get breathed back into the Atlanta Falcons, because for most of the last month, this felt like a team that was plodding along to a predictably disappointing finish. I thought Moose Johnston made the perfect point that it's such a good baseline to see how much the Falcons struggled with a similarly bad Raiders team versus how they just blew the doors off of the New York Giants. You could feel it. It felt like a weight was lifted off the shoulders of everybody on this team as they had a little bit of trust in the quarterback position, which is an ironic thing to say about a guy that was making his first career start. But that was the selling point of Michael Penix Jr. He's 24 years old already, at a 6-year college career. You're getting a guy who's a little bit more prepared to step into the chaos of the NFL. And I thought it showed. Hey, mature beyond his years. The guy was at Costco when he got word that he would be starting his first NFL game, and he looked completely unflappable against the Giants. All of a sudden, I'm so much more interested. The Falcons go up to Washington to face Jayden Daniels, two of the best quarterbacks in college football the last few years, facing off with playoff stakes. Did not have it on my bingo card that this would be such an exciting matchup, but here we are. And speaking of a guy that was mature beyond his years, had a chance to listen to Penix as he caught up with Laura Oakman after this game. And if I wasn't already, I'm a fan. Check it out for yourself.
All the teams, when scouting you, they talked about your body. They talked about how you broke or dislocated a bone every year for 4 years. And you said, if you want to get to know me, don't take an MRI, take an EKG. Right now, we're going to do a heart check. If we could see your heart, what would it show?
Man, it's beating big right now. You probably can see it right now. It's coming out of my chest, man. I'm super happy, man. I'm super blessed. Man, like we talked about, I come from adversity, even growing up, in the city where I'm from, in Dade City, small city, I worked all my life to get to this point, and I'm super blessed and super thankful.
Congratulations on the win. Merry Christmas, happy holidays. Thank you.
Merry Christmas, everybody. Happy holidays.
And man, did that decision to start Michael Penix by Atlanta aged like a fine wine on Sunday night. Because for the 6th and final item on our Sunday 6, let's take you behind the scenes on how we make the show. Because Atlanta beats New York in the early window. Penix played well enough. The win was impressive enough that we decided we wanted to feature it. Falcons have a new quarterback. They played their best game in weeks. They're going to be a factor in the NFC South race over the last 2 weeks. It felt important. Did not realize just how important it would be, because the Falcons, by the end of Sunday, find themselves in the lead in the NFC South. The night game saving some of the craziest action for all as the Dallas Cowboys topple the Tampa Bay Buccaneers 26-24. One of the best games of the day, one of the craziest games of the season. I don't think that's recency bias to say. And let's put this whole thing in context, because the Cowboys found out Sunday afternoon that they were eliminated from playoff contention. That was what we were originally going to talk about. Several teams saw their playoff odds end on Sunday. You would not know it from the way the Cowboys played for Mike McCarthy on Sunday night at AT&T Stadium. Just an inspired effort from a team that's really come together here over the last 5 or 6 weeks of the season. Dallas jumped out to a 23-14 lead at halftime. Brandon Aubrey booming kicks from all over the stadium. CeeDee Lamb, despite the shoulder injury that's been bothering him for most of the year, 7 catches for 105 yards. He had 90 of those at halftime. This does not look like a team that, has been missing most of its star players for a lot of the season. Dak Prescott's been out since week 9. Micah Parsons missed 5 or 6 weeks. These guys are playing inspire ball, and it's so impressive that they put this game together despite being mathematically eliminated. And they knew it. It happened before kickoff. Mike McCarthy talked about it on the pregame radio broadcast. He knew they had nothing to play for. He just put it all on the line out of pure spite and love for the game, because screw you. That's why. Tampa Bay, this one's going to sting as you move into week 17. The Bucs on top of the division, but they don't have the tiebreaker. They got swept by Atlanta this season. They are now in second place after falling to a team below 500. There aren't enough words to do justice to the chaos of the last 20 minutes of this game. Tampa trying desperately to rally. It felt like watching the end of a basketball game where the team that's trailing is just chucking up 3-pointers, just trying to get something to fall. And it felt like the Buccaneers were going to. Thought Baker Mayfield had a guy in the end zone with 6.5 minutes to play to score a touchdown that was going to cut it within 2. Instead, it's this incredible acrobatic interception by Jordan Lewis. What a season he's had for the Dallas defense. Tampa rallies anyway. They forced 4 Dallas punts in the fourth quarter. They go down. Baker finds Ryan Miller for a touchdown. It's 26-24. They force another punt. Vita Vea gets a big stop right around the 2-minute warning. It all looks like it's going to work out for Tampa Bay. Even after playing so poorly early, they're going to get out of here with a win. It's Deron Bland who says, not so fast. Baker Mayfield, Houdini's his way out of a sack. He laterals to Rashad White. Bucs are moving. We've got some drama on our hands. Deron Bland strips this thing away from the Bucs. I've so many crazy moments. It's hard to process it. It's wild that this all happened from a team that, in the standings anyway, had nothing to play for. But man, you go tell that to the Dallas Cowboys. This might have been their most inspired effort of the 2024 season. Like I said, it's a heartbreaker for Tampa Bay. They are no longer in control of their playoff destiny. They need to win out, and they need to hope the Atlanta Falcons lose one of their last 2 games. We talked about it earlier. Sunday Night Football, Falcons going up to Washington to face the Commanders, already looked good. Looks even better with Michael Penix now holding the division lead after just 1 start. Buccaneers will try to regroup with home games against Carolina and New Orleans. But man, I'll just say, I did not expect to be that riveted by Sunday Night Football. That's why you watch the games, man. But let's wrap this up with what we were already talking about, because we've mentioned this a few times leading up to this weekend already, but the vast majority of the hay is in the barn when you talk about the playoff picture, and especially in the NFC. With the results on Sunday, there are now just 2 teams outside the playoff picture that are alive. When we planned this segment, we thought it would be the Atlanta Falcons. Instead, it's the Tampa Bay Buccaneers and the Seattle Seahawks. The second place teams in the NFC South and the NFC West are the only teams that can still play their way into the postseason. The Cowboys are eliminated despite a hell of a fun game. The Arizona Cardinals lose in overtime to the Carolina Panthers. Chuba Hubbard goes off for the game-winning touchdown there. Sorry, Trey McBride. The Panthers might be sorry, but they beat y'all. The San Francisco 49ers get eliminated. They got eliminated before their loss to Miami, but another loss just seals it. The Saints are eliminated as well. Not a whole lot of guesswork to be done in the NFC. Whoever wins the NFC South and whoever wins the NFC West, the Rams and the Falcons currently lead for those spots, but the Buccaneers and Seahawks are still within striking distance. The Commanders have not officially wrapped up their playoff spot yet, but it would be a shock if they don't get across the finish line one way or another in the final 2 weeks of the season. And then, of course, there are the last 2 teams to play in Week 16. The Green Bay Packers, not officially part of the playoff field, but it's looking like a formality. They can officially punch their ticket with a win in any of their last 3 games. That starts tonight. They host the New Orleans Saints at Lambeau Field on Monday Night Football. We will be back on Tuesday to recap that, not to mention checking in with our buddy Jay Glazer on the latest news and insights from around the league. We're going to take a look at some of the young quarterbacks in the NFL. Several teams are trying out young signal callers. How has the season gone for them? Should they continue down that path? We're going to look at some of those situations. Fun conversation to look forward to. But that does it for the recap show. Like I said, we will be back tomorrow. You don't have to wait long. And we do have a Christmas preview coming your way. Everything in Week 17. We will have the Christmas games for you. We will have a full preview. So even if it's the holiday week, we've got you covered. Make sure you subscribe. If you're not, go find us on Spotify. Go find us on Apple Podcasts. We've got you covered all through this Christmas week. We hope you're having a fantastic holiday season, and I will chat with you all real soon.